Every year, NFL draft prospects do ridiculous things, either at the combine or on the field during their college career. Every class has wow players. So that's what we are talking about today. The 12 craziest stats about players in the 2026 NFL draft to help you get to know this class a little bit better.
And one of them, we did this separately with our notes. We came up with the same exact stat for a particular player. So I think we'll have to start with that guy.
Well, let's dive into that one. I believe this is a wide receiver out of Georgia.
Yeah, well, he started at USC, a 5-star, supposed to save the entire program, and was not my favorite player at USC. We're talking about Zachariah Branch, shows up at Georgia, and my stat is 60% of Zachariah Branch's receptions happened behind or at the line of scrimmage. 60%. About half of them were screens, and then there's also some of the other like Andy Reid type of receptions out there. This is a top 50 prospect according to consensus. I'm building out my top 64 board right now. I view him as a round 3 guy, or I view him as maybe even a round 4 guy. I think he's going to be excellent in the return game. He's going to be very fun in the schemed up world. There's just very little proven entity from Zachariah Branch. Winning down the field, intermediate. Is he only going to be a slot guy, a rotational guy? That's pretty rich for me as a top 50 prospect.
In my intro, I should have said craziest or wildest could mean really good or maybe really concerning. I'm not sure where you'd put this one. We can take this a step further.
Concerning.
As you said, 51.3% of his routes in 2025 were screens. Our buddy Ron Stewart put this into perspective. Percent of college receiving production coming from screens. Branches was 45.7%, the highest in his database. Maybe compare this to a few other names we've seen in previous draft classes. Malachi Corley, 37.4%. Kadarius Toney, 29%. Wandale Robinson, 27.2%. And Paris Campbell at 25.1%. That is a smorgasbord of different kinds of wide receivers. I did go and watch Branch. You see, other slant routes. I think you can make a case for him more so than maybe the next name in that list, and Malachi Corley, that he could do a few more things. But you and I were much lower on Corley compared to consensus, and especially compared to Joe Douglas, the former Jets general manager.
Definitely. So yeah, Branch got a lot more juice, but I do think his last name actually fits what he does on the route tree. He's got one branch, and that's kind of the screen game right now.
Jokes.
Yeah. I will say this. His start-stop ability, there's a little bit of like a matador, the Olay, lots of guys running right by him. So he looks like a 5-star athlete. It's just he's really tiny. So I wrote down Kadarius Toney as a comp. Rondale Moore was doing this. RIP to him. Really sad story there. But I think that you can draft him as a special teamer in that 4th, 5th wide receiver that comes in for gadget plays. If he turns out to be more than that, awesome. I don't think that you should draft him assuming he's going to be able to do the rest of it.
And that's the conversation, right? You said right now, and we're early on the process, consensus rankings have him around a top 50 overall player. That typically isn't the pedigree, the type of prototype that a top 50 pick is. Yeah. Day 3, sure. Have fun. Mickey Mouse stuff. He can create some explosive with the ball in his hands. But unless you have extreme confidence in a projection there, that might be difficult. Okay. Yep. We'll go from that to extremely positive. Everyone knows Notre Dame running back Jeremiyah Love. An insane stat that our buddy Rich Rebar pointed out. When he was contacted beyond the line of scrimmage last season, he averaged 10 yards per carry. Let me repeat. When his offensive line gave him the line of scrimmage and Jeremiyah Love was not contacted until, let's say, even 1 inch beyond the line of scrimmage, he averaged 10 yards per rush. That is the most of any running back in college with 100 plus rushes over the past 10 seasons.
It certainly felt like that watching his tape. And there would be some times where he would make the guy immediately not touch him behind the line of scrimmage and then take off. He's got incredible spin moves and stuff. His ability to process where the defender is going to be and then hit the right Madden button on the controller, whether that's the spin move or the hurdle or whatever, or just the gas. He just has it all so instantly fast. He's an incredible prospect.
Rich took this a step further. Jeremiyah Love faced the lowest rate of light boxes in this draft class last season, just 35% of his attempts. Makes sense if he's the best part of that Notre Dame defense, or offense, I should say. You would want to load the box against him. But when he did face a box with 6 or fewer defenders, which was 70 attempts, he averaged 9.1 yards per carry. Again, the most in the country.
Yep, and that's kind of what the modern NFL is, and I think that's the explosive rusher where you have to kind of beat the safety to create the explosiveness in the ground game. And
Yep.
I think defenses want you to take the running back that can average 4 yards per carry and like be a success rate guy. They're actually fearful of the Jeremiyah Love types, and that's how I'm changing my opinion on how I value running backs and like learning from the Jahmyr Gibbses of the world. Where like I want some juice nowadays.
To compare that to final seasons versus light boxes, Ashton Jeanty last year was at 8 yards per carry. J.K. Dobbins 6.9, Najee Harris all the way up at 6.9, Amari Hampton 6.7, Bijan 6.4, Jahmyr Gibbs 6.1. Obviously, these numbers are extremely high at the college level and higher than they would be at the NFL level, but it puts that into perspective that he's a full yard higher than the last running back that was selected in the top 10. That was just last season, and that is Ashton Jeanty. Hayden, I still have a lot of work to do in this draft class. I don't want to put a sour note here on this conversation. Just overall, it's kind of bland, vanilla, maybe lacking a bit of juice other than someone like Jeremiyah Love. I know you and I have had previous conversations of where do you stack running backs when looking at it from just a pure valuation-based drafting. In this class specifically that Jeremiyah Love is in, are you more comfortable selecting this type of player in the top 5, in the top 10 than you would be in previous seasons?
I had Ashton Jeanty like I think 12th or 13th overall, and that's kind of where I have Jeremiyah Love. They do it differently. Okay. I still think there's enough edge rushers and offensive linemen that I'd rather take in the top 10, and he'd be right there. If the Chiefs draft him at 9th overall, I'm not going to like completely crap on it. I just don't think that the Raiders, a team that has so many holes, they could be drafting the early running backs. A team with less holes available than you want to do Jeremiyah Love, then sure.
We have plenty of months and weeks for that debate to rage on. By the way, Jeremiyah Love has said, I believe that he is running the 40-yard dash at the NFL Combine. If you're watching this before he works out at the NFL Combine, you can take his faster or slower over an underdog right now. That is a 4.40. Go and play on the Dog app. Support us by supporting Underdog. The link is in the description down below. And there's plenty of others. The aforementioned Zachariah Branch is on here as well. 4.37 seconds. And then plenty of other wide receivers, edge rushers, linebackers, running backs, who's who. So go and play over on the Dog app.
All right, let's say in that same exact backfield, my next stat, 0.28. That's the forced missed tackles per carry for Jeremiyah Love and Jadarian Price over the last 2 seasons. So that's exactly equal. We just talked about how special Jeremiyah Love is. Price is right there in terms of the tackle breaking ability. He's more of like the early down, thicker back between the two. Basically didn't catch any passes next to Jeremiyah Love, and that's why Price is the clear RB2 in the draft class. That's consensus. And he's going to go in round 2 most likely. But I do think Price is a very good prospect in his own right. And I think he's going to be an interesting guy that we have to get right because he's not going to have the production as most of the first and second round prospects that go just because he was sharing the backfield with Jeremiyah Love. So we have to rely on efficiency. We have to rely on the tape to make sure we're not overdrafting a small sample size king. I came away with his film grade pretty high, and then stats like this one where he's 1 for 1 with Jeremiyah Love in the forced missed tackle department is pretty interesting to me.
I'll throw a fourth one at you real quick. No school in the common draft era since 1967 has had the top 2 running backs selected in a single draft. You know, we've had ones that are very close to each other. Think back to Darren McFadden going 4th overall in 2008. Then it was Jonathan Stewart. Then it was Felix Jones at 22nd overall. If you want to go back to, let's say, the Auburn days, yes, that was Ronnie Brown in 2005, 2nd overall. Then Cedric Benson, 4th overall. Then Cadillac Williams at 5th overall. I'm not saying that we're going to get, 2 top 10, 2 top 25 picks here at the running back position at the same school. But I know Daniel Jeremiah, I'm sure many others, maybe including yourself, have these guys as the only 2 running backs worthy of top 50 overall selections, and they are exiting the same backfield.
I always think about Reggie Bush and Lendell Wyatt, and what a backfield for me as about an 8-year-old going out there.
Whale.
Oh my God, what a dog.
What a dog. Okay, I've got another one. Let's go to the defensive side. LSU cornerback Mansoor Delane on 358 total coverage snaps last season gave up just 13 catches. And on top of that, just 7 first downs this past season. Again, 358 total coverage snaps. He gave up 13 catches, and just 7 of those went for first downs when he was targeted only 35 times this entire last year. That means that Mansoor Delane, which, by the way, completely checks the box of cool ass name alert.
Oh yeah.
When we're talking about here with prospects, that means he had the same amount of pass breakups in 7 that he had first downs allowed with 7. That's nuts.
Another one, same player, 0 touchdowns, 0 penalties the entire season. So only a baker's dozen receptions. None of them go for touchdowns, no penalties either. He's a really, really calm corner. He's not going to run as fast and not be as big as the top end guys, like the all pro level guys. He's so calm, and he can definitely has enough speed to track down most guys, but he just got really good hand usage. Talk about the pass breakups. He's my 13th overall player. He's going to go inside the top 15. I can see the Cowboys at 12, the Dolphins at 11. He's that caliber of a prospect.
Played at Virginia Tech his first 3 years, then LSU this past year. Those pass breakups don't even include the 2 interceptions that he had this past season. And another layer on top of this, Delane did not allow multiple receptions to a single player he covered all of last season. So yes, he gave up 13 catches, but no player had 2 catches.
Yeah.
That's pretty sweet.
You're not going to get him. Yeah. Fool me once. That's his style. Yeah. Incredible. All right, let's stick in the SEC. Ty Simpson, my stat is 68th. That is his EPA ranking against pressure among the 69 qualifying quarterbacks inside the Power 5 last year. That's not very good. On a per game or a per play basis, it was 53rd out of 69 overall. So obviously there was some offensive line issues. Caden Proctor had some issues at left tackle, and he's going to go very high. But Ty Simpson's one of these where you're an undersized player, and I think that when the pocket was kind of collapsing, his accuracy would kind of spray around a little bit. He does not have that much experience. I think only 15 career starts. So this is going to be the thing that these teams are going to be debating either probably in the back half of round 1 or early on day 2 is he ready to start right away, or is he a developmental guy that usually belongs in the second round? Stats like this one make me believe it's more the latter, that he needs a little bit of time due to the inexperience, and stats like this one against the pressure.
We have many, again, weeks to discuss this. Despite your concerns, is Ty Simpson locked in to that quarterback 2 spot behind Fernando Mendoza, or is that still up for grabs for you?
I think it's up for grabs. We got to figure out exactly how big Nussmeier is, and he's got some hand concerns and whatnot. They played the game pretty differently. I thought that Nussmeier was like very, very smart, and then Ty Simpson's more of just kind of like, let's chuck the ball around the field and have a little bit of juice athletically. He's just so small that he's kind of hard to kind of figure out. I thought his accuracy was the pressure and the accuracy. I think those 2 things together is what has me maybe a little bit more reserved versus other people out there.
Okay, if you brought up Ty Simpson, I should bring up Fernando Mendoza. This is another great stat from Lord Reeves, Rich Rebar. In the red zone for his college career, on 139 dropbacks, he had only 1 interception and only 7 sacks taken inside of the 20-yard line. And he took only 2 of those red zone sacks last season in terms of 69 dropbacks inside of the red zone. That is so good. That is so important, because whenever you and I discuss the award-winning stats versus film, we always bring up, 4-point plays out there, scoring touchdowns instead of field goals. When you get to the red zone, that can be the difference at the end of the game in terms of wins and losses. And we also discussed that when a quarterback or an offense as a whole takes a sack, then they are far, far less likely to come away with points in that given drive. And so just having a quarterback out there that understands to get the ball out or scramble, just not throw interceptions at the very least, and take sacks, then that just gives you more of a platform to end up with a touchdown rather than a field goal.
I just love his processing, pre-snap, post-snap. He's just so smart. He knows what he's doing out there. What's interesting about Mendoza is he kind of does the Joe Burrow thing where when it's like 3rd and 10 and stuff, he's willing to take a sack if that does mean that he's going to buy a little bit of extra time to be able to force a pass over the middle that can actually go for a first down. So it's like his raw sack numbers aren't even that crazy. But when he gets to the red area where every yard matters for the field goal kicker and there's less space to throw the ball down the field, he's getting the ball out quicker. That's like the situational awareness and a good stat there, kind of just show where Fernando Mendoza is and not viewing every single play being the same, that there's like layer to the complexity. And I think that's why both Brentley and I both threw out Joe Burrow as a little bit of a comp for Mendoza, even though they're built way differently.
Now, if I can add another crazy layer onto the stat. He only took 6 career college dropbacks under center, which he's going to need to do that a bit more often, now likely playing for Clint Kubiak and the Las Vegas Raiders, comparing that to Sam Bradford this past season, who took 218 dropbacks under center. Now, again, years and years ago, people would get concerned about, well, he didn't call plays in the huddle. They just clap at the line of scrimmage and everything was under shotgun and not under drop. I will say, as we've seen with Joe Burrow, for example, he does not want to play under center. He just wants to get in the gun, never turn his head away from the defense, always be looking at the coverages, always be looking at the safeties and process that way. Some quarterbacks simply do not want to turn away when doing the play fake from under center. But Clint Kubiak basically forces you to do that.
Yes. Yeah. Kubiak wants to throw the ball down the field. And I think that Fernando Mendoza is pretty good at that too. So I think that's like an uncertainty, but I would guess that will end up getting sorted out over the next couple of years here.
All right, people. My wife and I just moved into a new home. You know the drill. You get inspections, you get estimates, things to fix, the plumbing, the HVAC, the electrical, the roof, all that type of stuff. If you are going through a similar thing right now, I implore you to add life insurance onto that list. First of all, it's a lot easier to obtain and it's far, far less expensive. And I'll point you in the direction of Ethos, where you can get up to $3 million in coverage, and some policies are as low as $2 a day that are billed monthly. The reason why it's easy is that it is not complicated and it is 100% online. There is no medical exam required, and you can only answer a few questions, and that's all that you need. You get a quote in as little as 10 minutes. When I signed up for life insurance, someone came to my door at 7:30 in the morning, sat in the kitchen around the dining table with them for an hour and a half. That was not with Ethos. So again, protect your family with life insurance from Ethos. It is much, much simpler. Get your free quote at ethos.com/the show. That is ethos.com/the show. You never think about life insurance. Hopefully this forces you to do that now.
All right, let's go to Ohio State tight end Max Klare, who I've just watched him today in detail, and I really liked him. Okay, on-field athleticism score. This is over at PFF. He's in the 99.6th percentile. That is amazing. Over the last 5 years, that same exact stat among tight ends. Number 1, this guy named Brock Bowers. Number 3, this guy named Sam Laporta. Colson Loveland's hanging out there at 17th overall. This is a really good spot to be in. He's one of these guys that transferred from Purdue. He was really good at Purdue, like one of their top receivers. Then he goes to Ohio State. They have Carnell Tate, who's going to go in the top 10. Jeremiyah Smith is going to go where like top 3, top 4 overall in this next draft. So the production falls off. His ability to actually run the full route tree at tight end is really, really good. We're going to get some data on just how big he is. He's probably in that 240, 245 range, which is kind of like the new cutoff for the modern tight end. I'm talking about like the Brock Bowers and the Sam Laportas, where you can line them up in line, even though they're not fantastic at it, if the OC is committed to kind of helping these guys out. I think he has a little bit of compete as well as a blocker, but really his movement skills, Josh, eventually when you watch him, you'll notice just how athletic he is, and the on-field tracking stuff backs that up.
Here's a surprise, Hayden. I already have watched him. I've watched 3 tight ends.
Okay.
Watch Kenyon Sadiq, Eli Stowers, and Max Klare. I've seen Stowers ranked by some ahead of Klare. I don't get that at all. Stowers is like a true receiving tight end. Yeah. He's like out there and, he'll line up in line or attach the formation, but he is your movement guy, pure movement guy. Klare has tons of inline work, number of intermediate routes, up and out, corners, posts, all of that. You know me, I always talk about athleticism when it comes to this tight end position. The best of the best of the best tight ends in the league, not just now, but really the last 10 plus years, have all been freak athletes. Okay. It is one of the positions where athleticism matters the most if you're going to reach all pro status. Now, no one's talking about Max Klare right now as necessarily a first round selection. Maybe they do if he goes out there and like Dustin Kellers it at the NFL Combine, a former Purdue tight end on top of that. But yeah, I really did enjoy a all-around game from Max Klare, which can kind of be difficult to find with these all-around tight end prospects coming out of the college level right now.
I'm expecting Klare to do very well at the combine if he tests. And same thing with Kenyon Sadiq. I thought their athleticism shows out way differently, where Sadiq, I think, is more of a straight line athlete, where Max Klare, I think that he's just got a little bit more fluidity, sink his hips, kind of change directions. And I actually think that Kenyon Sadiq is probably going to have a higher vertical and run faster than him. Klare, I think, has the ability to run the full route tree and stuff. So I actually have those guys very close to my rankings, and I'll let the NFL combine kind of sort those things out. But I think Klare is going to be a riser, somebody that's kind of buried in consensus rankings. I would be pretty surprised if he's not a top 50 pick in the draft.
This one's kind of tongue in cheek. Okay. But let's have a little fun here. This is from my buddy, ILLM Alec, who I've followed for a very long time on Twitter and know nothing about him. Okay. Arvell Reese hasn't forced a turnover in a football game since high school. So again, the tongue in cheek aspect of this is, I bring that up to say that he's a perfect fit with the New York Jets, a team who didn't record a single interception.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
But, Reese has played off ball. He's played edge. He's basically played for 3 seasons and not a single forced fumble recovery, or interception. And that can change immediately in his first snap in the NFL.
It absolutely could, because he got the heaviest hands in the freaking class, man. I'm stuck. It's like completely shocked that this stat even exists. He lights up tight ends. When you go back and watch him in detail, he absolutely crushes dudes, and he can set the edge and stuff. So it's a matter of time before a ball is being forced. Now I will say, in coverage and stuff, he's not crazy out there in coverage like Fred Warner and stuff. So maybe the interceptions shouldn't catch me by surprise. A forced fumble is coming very quickly. Spencer Fano, he's going to be a top 10 draft pick, an offensive tackle, a right tackle out of Utah. I was looking at adjusted pressure rate among the Power 5, Power 4 tackles. That removes screens, that removes throws under 2 seconds, that removes the stunts, just you're in pass protection one-on-one. He was second best over all the Power 5 tackles, 1.7% pressure rate. That is fantastic out there. You can pretty much watch his entire season, and he doesn't lose on the outside. He's just way too nimble out there. He's very explosive. I think he's pound for pound strong. There's some people that want him to put on some weight. I think he has the size to be able to do that. And even if he's not crazy lengthy, he's just so athletic out there. So he was awesome at that. Right behind him is the other right tackle, Arizona State, Mike Eonchor. He's fantastic at 2%. Compare that to Francis Mauigoa, who's at 4.5%. Caden Proctor is almost at 5%. So it's really is Fanu. He's kind of runs away with this. He's a for sure right tackle, where some of the other guys, are they a guard or tackle? I think this stat kind of backs that up.
You know me, at the NFL Combine offensive lineman, I always look at the 20-yard short shuttle times. Don't believe we had a single one qualify last season, so hopefully we make up for that this year. Again, if you run a 4.47 or better, those players since the, I believe, 2010 draft have gone on to start 80% of their NFL games. And that includes day 3 picks recently, like Tanner Bordeloni, Zach Tom, Mason McCormick of the Pittsburgh Steelers. The San Francisco 49ers have started to catch on to this trend,
they have,
by the way. So that's just something to keep in mind here. But once again, I'm sure producer Weaves, and I'll send him the tweet, is throwing on the board. Come Sunday, final day of the draft, or the NFL Combine, final day of the NFL Combine. The only thing that matters to me, 4.47. And if you get that, boy, I'm in love with you.
I would not be surprised if Fano hits that. He's moving like a gazelle out there. And also the left tackle Lomu can move really well too. So both of the Utah guys are very, very clean movers out there laterally.
Okay, I've got 2 more, and I'll do quick ones. The first one, Jakobi Lane, your guy, drew 211 yards of defensive pass interference yards, a class high 12 penalties. Again, our buddy Rich Rebar calls that the George Pickens Award from this class.
Yeah. So I think that you can take this as a pro or a con here. I think for him, it's kind of a little bit of both. He's got the frame where you can throw out the T. Higgins and George Pickens stuff. He doesn't move quite as well as that, and that's probably why there's a lot of defensive pass interferences, because guys are always kind of right in his body. But at the same time, he's earned the ball thrown up to him in the way that USC was doing that. So opinions are really, really spread out on him. The on-field tracking numbers are really bad for Lane, but he's kind of one of these guys where, yeah, I'm not blowing by everybody. I might not be able to sink my hips, but if I'm just dunking on you, then there's some value to that.
If you're here 24 minutes into the episode, Hayden and I are going to do a combine wrap-up video when it comes to running back workouts, wide receiver workouts, obviously quarterbacks. We'll probably talk tight ends, edge rushers on top of that, and heck, maybe even some offensive linemen if we feel up for it. So during combine week, after the workouts are over that night, be sure to lock into the channel, hit subscribe, because we have top-end NFL combine coverage and reaction for you. Okay, I'll close it out with, I think, maybe one of your guys right now. If you look at missed tackle rate and run stop rate, and fball_insights has this an entire visual out there on Twitter. Caleb Banks, his 2025 season with Florida, is the worst among first rounders in both categories over the last 7 drafts when we look at first round prospects. Now, before you say anything, I want to ask, is this fair? And it's not, because he only played 3 games due to a broken foot. And obviously his pass rushing numbers are fantastic, despite being, 330 pounds. So again, This is a very, very small sample size. Whenever we see kind of outlier numbers of a 3.2% run defense stop rate and a 22% missed tackle rate, those 2 red boxes do stand out versus these quote unquote competition.
I do think this is fair, because I went back to his 2024 numbers in my write-up, and I noted that his solo tackles per game, which is actually the stat that translates most for the position, which makes sense. Like, if you're making a solo tackle as a defense tackle, like, you created some like wow play in the backfield. His is in the bottom 7th percentile among drafted defense tackles. That's not first round defense tackle. That's all drafted defensive tackles over the last 2 decades. So really, really low number there. I did go back. Florida had the craziest defensive line in 2024. Remember, like, that the Desmond guy that's like, as big as a house out there. They had another guy. They had the biggest defensive line I have ever seen. It was incredible. And that includes Caleb Banks, who's like 6'6", 330 with 35-inch arms. You're drafting him to get after the passer. If he hits, and that's a big if, he can look like Chris Jones. If he doesn't hit, we can go back to stats like this and explain, okay, the broken foot, why didn't he declare? Why are these numbers so bad in these categories? So he's got a huge range of outcomes. I split the difference right now. I'm 17th overall in my current rankings right now, but he needs to have a good combine because weight kind of fluctuated. And for being 6'6", 330, some of these run game numbers are pretty pathetic.
Now, McDonald out of Ohio State is also in this draft class. If you look at his pass rush numbers, his are the worst among the last 7 drafts and potential first round picks at the defensive tackle position, with a 3.8% pass rush win rate and then a 4.8, I believe, pressure rate on top of that. And both of those are the lowest among all those. So you have one guy in the run defense and one guy in the pass rush department.
Yeah, Caden McDonald, his like one move right now is just he lines up right over the center's face and just bull rushes him right to the quarterback so his teammate can get a sack. That's kind of like what you get with him. Now, as a run defender, I would say he's a tier above like Tyreek Williams, who got drafted in this range. Like, I think that you draft him and you're getting one of the best run defenders in the entire NFL. Like, I think you can just take that as a fact. But the pass rush like plan versus like someone like Kenneth Grant last year, I think very, very different of like the pass rush use you're going to get with him.
Right. That does it. At least 12 of the wildest, craziest stats you'll see of prospects in the 2026 NFL draft. If you liked us and like this, let us know in the comments. Maybe we'll do a part 2 as this goes along and include some athletic testing numbers on top of that, because I'm sure some of these guys will jump out of the gym in Indianapolis. As you all know, during NFL draft season, we have individual prospect evaluations for running backs and wide receivers and tight ends and quarterbacks. I think we had 46 of them last year. So hoping to at least achieve that number this year. So hit that subscribe button and lock in for these next 2 months, because it's some of the most important time of the calendar for content. All right. For Weaves, for Mosho, for Hayden, up the Villa. Talk to y'all next time. See ya.